Shalom, shalom. This video is about Chanukah. It is part one of two videos that I'm going to make in order to keep it short and manageable. Otherwise it gets too long. There's so much to talk about. The Chanukah festival, or the festival of dedication, also called the festival of lights. And if you like, in my home language Afrikaans, it's Kersfees, the festival of the candles. You can see how actually Christmas Day, Kersfees, is a corruption of Chanukah. And let me tell you about it. When the Old Testament closed, the worship structures that was in existence in the Bible was the priesthood serving in the temple and the Levites with their Levitical duties, which included worship music amongst other duties as well. Kings from the line of David ruled until the Babylonian diaspora, but after the return of Judah, Judah was ruled by a governor, and it's Nehemiah specifically when they return. The spiritual leader Ezra learned from past failures then, and he realized the importance for Jews to know the Torah, so he instituted the weekly Torah portions in order to educate the nation. This weekly Torah portions is the Bible study method I use and that I use in these videos today. It's also the Bible study method that Yeshua himself used. So if it was good enough for Yeshua 2,000 years ago, certainly good enough for me. But the credit for thinking up this way to study the Bible really should be given to Ezra. So about 2,500 years ago, more or less. You can read about that in the Bible book of Nehemiah, chapter 8. In the return, maybe about half of the Jews who were in Babylon returned from the diaspora to the promised land. The religion and culture revolved around the reinstated temple service, even though the second temple did not come close to the glory of the first temple that was built by King Solomon. The Jews spoke Hebrew, but also Aramaic as the lingua franca of the world then, and they probably also spoke Farsi, but Farsi was never used in any of the biblical writings. When the New Testament opens, suddenly everybody spoke Hebrew and Greek. Excuse me. The Romans ruled over Judea with the aid of an Edomite tetrarch who superficially converted to Judaism but never really converted. His name was Herod, and he was definitely not from the Davidic line, but he was a useful lackey to the Romans. Good day, my name is Barney de Klerk. I'm not a Bible teacher, I'm a student of God's Word and of history in this case. And I love sharing with you what I'm learning from my studies. A brief overview of the history that led to Chanukah is a brilliant young Greek general called Alexander the Great. He conquered the entire known world at the time. And when Alexander died without descendants, his empire was divided between his four generals. Ptolemy was the general who received the greater Israel portion, and it included Egypt. During his reign, the famous ancient library of Alexandria was developed in Egypt. And it was there at the library in Alexandria that 70 Jewish rabbis congregated to translate the Hebrew scriptures into Greek for a wider audience. And this translation is called the Septuagint. So many modern Bible translations are based on the Septuagint, even copies of copies, but originally from the Septuagint. Other translations are based on the Hebrew scriptures. So, and sometimes there's a difference in translations, not materially so, though, but I normally point it out when I come across it. Ptolemy's Hellenism was seductive, but it wasn't forceful. A couple of generations later, the Ptolemies were conquered by the Seleucids. They were Assyrian Hellenists and they did not tolerate any dissent. Forced conversions to worship the Greek gods became their culture. We have to understand that Greek mythology is based on worshipping of the fallen angels from before the flood, before Noah's flood, and the Nephilim as the demigods who came from the union of these fallen angels with human women. Zeus is merely a Greek name for Hasatan, for Lucifer, the enemy of God. I want to make a side note here. The Roman Catholic Church, maybe for a better part of 500 years later, and then another 1,000 years after that, Jew haters like Martin Luther also deployed forced conversions against the Jews. You can see the same evil spirit that possessed Antioch or Antiochus was also at work in the Roman Catholic Church and in Martin Luther and in the Nazis who loved Luther's corrupted theology, and we see that spirit very active in our day. Today, this morning in my time, it was evening time in Sydney, 2 gunmen murdered 12 Jews celebrating Hanukkah at Bondi Beach at Sydney in Australia. What a horrible thing, but it's the same evil spirit. The reason why this history that I'm talking about of Hanukkah and where it comes from is unknown to Christians is because Martin Luther saw to it that the book of Maccabees and some other books from the Old Testament, the Tanakh, disappeared from the biblical canon. Luther was unsuccessful to also have the book of Revelation removed, and some others also stayed, like Peter's books and Jude and James. Luther wanted all those removed from the Bible. So from this, I can see how the catechism of many Christian churches was weaponized to hail evil Constantine and evil Martin Luther as heroes of the faith, when in fact they were deceivers. Their hatred of the God of Israel was expressed in their hatred of God's chosen people, the Jews. Back to the Hanukkah history. In the 2nd century BC, a Seleucid Syrian king named Antiochus or Antiochus IV Epiphanes ruled the roost. He was initially, as a young man, taken hostage by the Romans in Rome for dissent. But after that, he learned to mix his Hellenistic background with Roman politics. And several years later, his older brother exchanged him for a Roman hostage and appointed him as the Tetrarch over Judea. Tetrarch is a quarter king, if you like a quarter portion of a fried chicken. He was just a quarter king, not a full king. He invaded, that's Antiochus Antiochus, he invaded Egypt twice in his rule from Jerusalem to Israel. The second time was in the year 168 BC. And on the way there to Egypt, he was surprised by a Roman garrison who first conquered Egypt and then were coming around the bend to invade Israel. This Roman garrison was led by Popilius, who famously came to Antiochus and he drew a circle with his walking stick in the sand around Antiochus, and he asked him to admit defeat to Rome. And he said to him, if you step over the line, it will be war. So Antiochus, he conceded to Popilius. And this is a famous thing. Even today we see little boys drawing lines in the sand saying, step over the line, then the fight is on. It comes from Popilius, who did that to Antiochus Antiochus. It drove Antiochus mad. So in the last 3.5 years of his rule that started after that, he foreplayed the tribulation period. As I said, he was a madman, the year after the drawing of the line in the sand, in 167 BC, Antiochus Antiochus brought a statue of Zeus into the Holy of Holies of the temple, and he sacrificed a pig on the temple altar for Zeus. This defilement of the temple happened, as I said, in the last 3.5 years of his 9-year-long rule. His rule was from 175 to 164 BC. But after he eventually fled from Judea before the Maccabees, he died in the year 164 BC from a mysterious illness on a military campaign against Iran, or Persia as it was called then. In the year 167 BC, that's as the start of his last 3 years of rule over Judea, Antiochus Antiochus sent an ox wagon carrying a statue of Zeus, nogal featuring his own face. That was the sign of the madman. He produced a statue of Zeus, but he had his own face engraved on the statue of Zeus. He ferried that around Israel on an ox wagon, together with a section or a platoon of soldiers to enforce conversions amongst the Jews. And they eventually came to a small town northwest from Jerusalem called Modi'im, where an old priest called Mattathias and his 5 sons lived. Mattathias warned the people against bowing to the statue, and when somebody started to yield to the Greek soldiers and the pressure, Mattathias lost his hat. He grabbed the sword of one of the Seleucid soldiers and he killed the soldier. And his 5 sons then had to jump in to save their father, and against the odds they defeated the Greek Assyrian soldiers in that battle. Mattathias' oldest son Judah became the leader of the spontaneous popular revolt, and he was nicknamed the Hammer. In Hebrew he was called Judah Maccabee, Judah the Hammer. They deployed guerrilla tactics because the army was far stronger than they were, but they fought the Greek Assyrians from town to town and eventually defeated them in a campaign that resulted 8 fierce battles over cities and towns. The Maccabees liberated Jerusalem and the temple in the year 164 BC. And naturally they had a strong and urgent desire to rededicate the temple. But it was the 9th month of the year, 2 months after Sukkot and 3 months before the annual Pesach cleaning of the house. And they couldn't wait. They were impatient and with zeal, and in zeal to have a second Sukkot modeled after the second Passover, but 2 months after the first Sukkot, or the real Sukkot. They searched for oil for the menorah, and they found only one small container with enough oil to burn the menorah for only 1 day. So they lit the menorah regardless. It required several days, maybe another week, 8 days in total, to make lamp oil. To make lamp oil, olives first had to be harvested on the Mount of Olives. Harvesting required the fruit to be beaten off the trees with sticks, bruising the fruit a bit. And then enough fruit had to be gathered for a batch big enough to ensure seamless supply of lamp oil. When the beaten off fruit had to be gathered and taken to the oil press, you'll never guess the name of the oil press, Gethsemane. The harvested olives had to be crushed with a wheel into a pulp, and then into a pulp, and the pulp had to be pressed in woven baskets to liberate the oil. The oil then was released with water, of course, from the press, and the pure oil had to be spooned off as it floated on top of the watery olive juice. Only then, when you have the pure oil, would it burn in a lamp. The small miracle of Hanukkah was that the oil they found that was supposed to last only for 1 day, it lasted for the full 8 days while they're preparing more oil. The menorah lamp never went out for 8 days from the small amount of oil. It was an unmistakable sign that Adonai blessed their venture to rededicate the temple. And you can read that in Exodus 27 verse 20, where we read, "You are to command Bnei Israel that they are to bring you pure olive oil beaten for the lamp, to cause a lamp to burn continually." You have to understand that any amount of water in the oil would have caused the lamp to blink out. So the oil had to be pure. In the Peshat exegesis, this relates to the menorah oil. In the Sot exegesis, it clearly refers to the Messiah who had to be beaten to ultimately produce the light of the world. The Torah applied here. It's interesting in history, from the Talmud, we read that the westernmost candle of the menorah never ever blinked out, even when it was shut at night, until 40 years before the temple was destroyed. The temple was destroyed in the year 70 by the Romans. So 40 years before that is more or less the year 30 AD. It coincides exactly with the time of the Messiah's death on the cross. After that, the menorah never stayed lit. It blinked out every single night. Indications are that Yeshua was conceived during Chanukah and he was born in the following Sukkot. He is the light of the world, and the reason why Chanukah is the festival of light, or the festival of candles, or Kersfeest, this is the greater miracle of Chanukah, that God's light came to dwell with us as Emmanuel, to provide a way for us to rededicate ourselves to serve Adonai. During Chanukah is the best time of the year to rededicate your life as well, because is your body not a temple to the Holy Spirit, a temple to Adonai? So let's get rid of all the Hellenistic idols in our lives and let your light shine into this dark world and darkening world that we are living in. I pray that Adonai Eloheinu will bless you and keep you, that He will shine His face upon you, His lamp upon you, that He will provide for your every need, and that He will make you complete and give you inner peace even in the time that we're living in. Shalom, shalom.